Vendors are banned, but migrants continue to defy all of the rules and the laws that New York Mayor Eric Adams is sourcing from Brandon Johnson in order to stop these buses from coming in, but they going over into Jersey. All right, make sure you hit a like for the algorithm, subscribe to the channel, turn on your notifications. Let's rock.
Tomorrow, the Brooklyn Bridge could look a lot different.
All right, that's when the city is set to start enforcing its ban on vendors selling goods on bridges. Fox 5's Kendall Green caught up with vendors on what could be their last night selling on the span.
For tourists from all over the world, the Brooklyn Bridge.
Look how many people are on that bridge in the middle of January. That is out of control. If you guys have ever visited New York, and I'm not just talking about going to visit New York, I'm talking about being a tourist even in your own city. You go over on the Brooklyn Bridge, you go to play chess in a park, you go to get some Brooklyn pizza. New York is one of my most favorite cities to visit. I'm going to be honest with you. It be looking just like this. You get a bike, rent a bike. I actually walked over the Brooklyn Bridge, and it was crazy over there. So if you're claustrophobic or you don't like a bunch of people around you, New York is not the place for you to go. But New York always got 1 million visitors all the time, 100% of the time. The junk is crazy.
Bridge is a must-see.
I've wanted to see the views. I've wanted to see everything. So I'm so glad I'm here today.
And it's a trip well worth the travel, even from as far as France.
It was really good, and there were a lot of people, but we could take amazing pictures, and it was very, very beautiful.
But with Tuesday's sunset comes the final night and the final sale for many vendors who have built their lives on the bridge, selling their merchandise like Yomara Sargato.
Obviously, I'm worried. I mean, the only reason that I come here is because I have 3 kids. They go to college. I need to pay.
With a valid permit and more than $25,000 in taxes every year, she sells souvenirs, some as cheap as $1, but those dollars add up over the years, where she and her husband work nonstop. The stroke of midnight for many of these vendors is just as big as the ball drop of Times Square, but except for them, on the other side of midnight, there's not excitement, there's more anxiety.
Tomorrow is going to be a nightmare, completely. It's going to be a nightmare because we're not going to be able to put our stands over here. We're not going to be able to work. We're not going to be able to provide food for our kids at home.
While vendors' sale of souvenirs pays them well, the congestion that comes with it robs others of their experience at the historic landmark.
I feel like it clogs up the walkway, and people are just crowded around. And if you're actually just
Wait. Let me stand on the side of the vendors really quickly. But let me look at the rest of the video, and then I'll make my assessment.
trying to enjoy the stroll across the bridge, you can't get through.
15 disabled veterans are hoping to get through, filing a lawsuit arguing it's unlawfully enforceable against veterans, who they claim should be exempt, citing a state law enacted in 1898, granting veterans the right to choose street vending as a source of income. Unless a judge rules otherwise, authorities will begin walking the bridge to remove and relocate any vending items left on the path beginning at midnight.
They just want to kick us out of here like we're nothing. We have our rights.
All right, let me stand on the side of the vendors. Let me stand on the side of the vendors. I know some people like Toxin says some of them have been selling there legally for years. So people can't make money no more, no permits. No, they do have a permit. What they said earlier in this is that they pay for their permits. They pay literally thousands of dollars a year in permits, and they pay fees to be there. And that's what they've been doing without any kind of problem all the way up to this year. Now, here's the thing about it, right? Vendors in New York is just a part of the fabric and the culture of New York. It's been like that since I've ever visited there. It's been like that on the movies. That's just always what it's been. Being able to walk down the street. Now, I don't agree with the people that's selling the illegal purses and the bags that's on the street that just be right on the street. They know they doing wrong. That's different. But being able to sell it on the bridge in New York, and the only reason that you have to remove them is because you want it to be less congested, is crazy to me. And so there's certain things I think that you have to understand the culture of where you're at. You got to be from there. And that's why I also advocate that people from the places that they are from the places born and raised there, is probably best suited to oversee what's happening in that space. That's just a New York thing. It's as New York as a subway. And if they're paying taxes and they paying their permitting licenses and all of that stuff, then I think that they should be able to do it there legally. And so you can't just remove the thing that makes it culturally normal on that space, because that's some of the stuff that people go there to see. You go there to see the street, the street dancers. You go there to see and walk the bridge. You go there to do all of that stuff. Now, again, I don't believe in you going out there to sell fake handbags, but I think that it's wild. It's not going to be any less congested. You think it's going to be less congested just because they ain't got street vendors out there in New York? Why would you remove tax-paying and permit-paying citizens from the bridge just because somebody want to come over there and complain that they want it to be less congested? That's stupid. That is so dumb to me. Shout out to Black Beauty. Shout out to everybody that's super chatting. But on the flip side, while they're removing the vendors, and so as of today, Wednesday, if you're visiting New York, you're no longer going to see street vendors on the bridge of the Brooklyn Bridge going over, because red tape, politics, it's always something in the way. But on the flip side, this is what you have to deal with.
Turning now to the migrant crisis.
All right, Mayor Adams defending his executive order restricting when buses can arrive in the city, even though they appear to have found ways around that.
Fox Eye's Morgan McKay has the latest from City Hall.
Not one bus from Texas has complied.
It's been almost a week since Mayor Eric Adams issued an executive order that limits buses from dropping off migrants in the city unannounced. And his administration says not a single bus has complied. Instead, buses being sent from Texas have been dropping off migrants in areas like New Jersey, then buying them a train ticket to the city in order to avoid being fined or sued.
Our goal is not to hold any of this chaotic tactic against the migrants who are arriving.
Adams has been encouraging municipalities outside of the city to implement their own executive orders similar to his. So far, only the town of Clarkstown in Rockland County has done so. Adams will be meeting with the governor of New Jersey later in the day, but blasted Texas Governor Greg Abbott, saying he is trying to destabilize the city.
The executive order is not backfiring. His goal is to disrupt. And so the EO is only the first level that we're going to continue to modify.
Meanwhile, Adams.
So you can't control other cities, but let me tell you why other cities don't really care, why they're not tripping. Is because New York has such a good infrastructure as far as public transportation, that defying your orders, the only people that's probably a little bit bothered by it is New Jersey, because Jersey, like, we didn't ask for this. But what you do starts to affect your neighbors. And the fact that they're still buying them bus tickets to get back into New York City is one of the reasons why they don't really probably even care. As long as you're not sticking around and staying there, cities outside of New York are not going to be on your team. As a matter of fact, they're probably not in the same boat as you as far as their voting patterns or believing in the thing that you're doing. And so they're not necessarily against Texas. They're against you and the decisions that you're making that ultimately is leading to migrants getting dropped off in a city in the first place. And so they just going to buy them some bus tickets. Listen, everything that y'all got going on as far as these sanctuary cities is working against you. Every single thing that y'all got going on. Every time that you don't get to the source, the core issue, and some people will say, well, the core issue is the fact that Biden is not extending federal dollars. No, the core issue is, let me tell you what I think is happening. Yesterday, last night when I got off the plane, our bags was slow to come out of the baggage claim. And so what they were saying is, well, we're short-staffed. Everywhere that I go, whether you go into a place to eat and you got a whole bunch of tables around and it's a whole long waiting list, but they got a limited amount of staff to save them, to serve people, they say, well, we're short-staffed. And then also later in the show, I'm going to present to you another mindset that also is feeding into why we're having such a migrant crisis happening inside of the United States of America. And it's largely because a lot of these positions are going unfilled that a lot of these people don't want to do. And so I don't think that they're against the migrant crisis. I think that they're against the idea that they're not granting them work permits and the fact that they can't carry themselves. And so when they become a burden on the cities that they're in, then that's when they start to say that they're having a problem with the migrant crisis, because they're in y'all schools, they're taking up y'all healthcare system, they're causing your tax dollars to go down, and where you allocating resources, they're forcing you to be able to cut funds in sanitation and education and public safety. Social services budget is going up. They never cut the social services budget. Did you realize that? In all three sectors where they cut money the biggest in New York, sanitation, police, education, they never cut any piece, not one piece of the budget that they ever cut with regard to social services. It's never on the table. And the biggest way for them to be able to drive down inflation is to allow for, and I think that it's a multi-level approach. I think that 2 or 3 things can be true at the same time. I think that there's a lot going on with it, but I don't think that it's just one way. When you think of cheap labor, when you think of people that's doing jobs, when you think of jobs going unfilled, the jobs that most people don't want to do. Somebody said Detroit has a ton of buildings with no one in them. That's not true. It's not true. And I don't want y'all over here pitching y'all politics over here. Shout out to my dog, No Captivity with Freezy. But like I said, the decisions that they're making are affecting the cities that surround them, and they're the ones that's going to suffer the consequences as a result of it.
On Tuesday repeated comments he made last week that we sought to clarify.
Do you believe that migrants are committing crime here in the city, and what data are you using to back that up?
Do I believe that there are some migrants who are committing crimes in the city? Yes. You place a person in an environment where they can't work, can't provide for themselves. They have to just sit around all day. That's not a good scenario.
He basically saying they out there stealing, killing, and selling butt. That's what he's saying. He's saying that we can't stop these brothels from continuing to pop up in Queens. Y'all know that Queens got a very big problem with brothels and open prostitution that's over on the streets of New York. They got to use what they got to get what they want. They got to use what they got to get what they want. Are y'all tuning into the Anton Daniels channel tonight for me and my boy Freezy to cook up like we always do on a Wednesday night? They got to use what they got to get what they want. Players Club out there on the streets of Queens. Yeah. Yeah. Panhandling, selling butt, stealing, doing all kind of stuff. That's what he ain't telling you. He don't want to tell you the truth. I'm going to tell you what the truth is. They brought the Dominican Republic straight over to Queens, New York.
Adams would still not give specific data he is using to back that claim, but pointed to an alleged robbery ring, which legal aid pushed back on.
We identified that this was a robbery pattern, and there were migrants who participated in that robbery pattern.
I would love to see the data that creates these conclusions, and it's very
I'm sorry. I need to ask you what your pronouns are before we continue. Is it they, them, she, sher? I won't any longer, especially considering what happened to the Delta worker, just automatically assume based off of the pitch of your voice or the femininity in your lips. Because now y'all got lips injections. I'm not just going to assume. What is your name? If your name is not presented on the screen, I need to know what are your pronouns. What are your pronouns? He, she, they, them. Have y'all ever seen somebody's Instagram profile and it say pronouns sure? You telling me I'm supposed to walk up to you and say, excuse me, sir? What a Z-U-R. Excuse me, sir. Come on, man. That's too hard. That ain't even natural. Ain't even natural.
concerning to hear the mayor trying to polarize New Yorkers in this way.
Now, Governor Kathy Hochul on Tuesday did voice her support for the mayor's executive order, but the Adams administration said they would like to see her take a more active role in this crisis.
Where is Kamala Harris and all of them? Kamala Harris is the border czar. Kamala Harris is the border czar. CZAR. I know I'm a C student, but I definitely can read. Kamala Harris is the border czar. That is her official title, according to what she got elected as. I have not seen this woman do anything except for go over to Ghana and advocate for them to switch over to being alphabet community also. Yeah, the reporter is looking good, but I know that if I start talking about how Morgan McKay looks on the screen, then you're going to have Messi and all of the people in the chat saying, Connie Harris, Anton, stop being distracted. I know I'm trying not to look just like y'all looking. I'm trying not to look at her because she looking good. And she looking at me. I'm looking at her. She looking at me. I'm looking at her. I'm trying not to go out and look at her Instagram.